When we pay attention to nature's music, we find that everything on earth contributes to its harmony. The trees joyously wave their branches in rhythm with the wind. The sound of the sea, the murmuring of the breeze, the whistling of the wind through the rocks, hills, and mountains, the flash of the lightning and the crash of the thunder, the harmony of the sun and moon, the movement of the stars and planets, the blooming of the flower, the fading of the leaf, the regular alternation of morning, evening, noon, and night, all reveal to the seer the music of nature. Hello, beautiful beings. This is Aurelia from Aureliaslight, and I welcome you to my channel and another episode of Manifesting the Miraculous. In tonight's episode, I'm going to be diving even deeper into the world of music, the healing powers of music, especially ancient music, and using music for its true intent and purposes, which is to reach the highest aspect of the divine, God. So I welcome you here to enjoy another episode of the healing aspect of music, reaching the divine and the higher order of God and harmony, and the mysticism of sound and music by Sufi teacher Hazrat Inayat Khan. Language may be called the simplification of music. Music is hidden within it as the soul is hidden in the body. At each step toward simplification, the language has lost some of its music. A study of ancient tradition reveals that the first divine messages were given in song, as were the Psalms of David, the Song of Solomon, the Gathas of Zoroaster, and the Gita of Krishna. When language became more complex, it closed as it were one wing, the sense of tone keeping the other wing, the sense of rhythm outspread. This made poetry a subject distinct and separate from music. In ancient times, religions, philosophies, sciences, and arts were expressed in poetry. Part of the Vedas, Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Zen, Avesta, and Kabbalah, and the Bible are to be found in verse, as well as different arts and sciences in the ancient languages. Among the scriptures, the only work in prose is the Quran, and even this is not devoid of poetry. In the East, even in recent times, not only manuscripts of science, art, and literature were written in poetry, but the learned even discoursed in verse. In the next stage, man freed the language from the bond of rhythm and made prose out of poetry. Although man has tried to free language from the trammels of tone and rhythm, yet in spite of this, the spirit of music still exists. Man prefers to hear poetry recited and prose well read, which is in itself a proof of the soul seeking music, even in the spoken word. The crooning song of a mother who soothes the infant and makes it sleep, and lively music gives it an inclination to dance. It is music that doubles the courage and the strength of a soldier when marching toward the field of battle. In the East, when the caravans traveled from place to place on a pilgrimage, they sing as they go. In India, the coolies sing when at work, and the rhythm of the music makes the hardest labor become easy for them. An ancient legend tells how the angels sang at the command of God to induce the unwilling soul to enter the body of Adam. The soul, intoxicated by the song of the angels, entered the body that it regarded as a prison. All spiritualists who have really sounded the depths of spirituality have realized that there is no better means of attracting the spirits from their plane of freedom to the outer plane than by music. They make use of different instruments that appeal to a certain spirit and sing songs that have a special effect upon that particular spirit and whom they wish to communicate. There is no magic like music for making an effect upon the human soul. The taste for music is inborn in man, and it first shows in an infant. Music is known to a child from its cradle, but as it grows into the world of delusion, its mind becomes absorbed in so many and various objects that it loses the aptitude for music that its soul possessed. When growing up, the man enjoys and appreciates music in accordance with his grade of evolution and with the surroundings in which he has been born and brought up in. The man of the wilderness sings his wild lays, and the man of the city has his popular songs. The more refined man becomes, the finer the music he enjoys. The character in every man creates a tendency for music akin to it. In other words, the guy man enjoys light music, while the serious-minded person prefers classical, and the intellectual man takes delight in technique, while the simpleton is satisfied with his drum. The effects of music depend not only on the proficiency of one, but also upon the evolution of one who plays music and listens to music. Its effect upon the listener is in accordance with his knowledge and evolution. For this reason, the value of music differs with each individual. For a self-satisfied person, there is no chance of progress, because he clings contentedly to his state and tastes according to his evolutionary state, refusing to advance a step higher than his present level. He who gradually progresses along the path of music in the end attains to the highest perfection. No other art can inspire and sweeten the personality like music. The lover of music attains sooner or later to the most sublime field of thought. I wanted to share a bit about my perspective as it relates to music. As a music educator, a composer, a recording artist, a singer, and one who has been within a musical family for as long as I can remember. Music really does reflect our state of consciousness. So, when we are in a place of depression, we usually move towards more of a depressed kind of music. When we are angry, we listen to more acidic or rock music. So it really does reflect who we are. Our outer environment, the music that we choose, reflects our inner world. So again, if we are to raise our consciousness, and if we are here listening to this podcast to raise and expand our consciousness, wouldn't it behoove us to choose music that expands us, that raises us, that harmonically balances us? So I encourage you, perhaps this week, to listen to some music that you haven't listened to before, something that can stretch you a little bit. If you haven't listened to something by Mozart in a long time, or Bach, go check them out. We all know Mozart and Bach, and if you haven't, and if you don't, I beg of you to go look at them now. They were composers from hundreds of years ago, and their music is both, one is classical and one is Baroque. However, their music is mathematically perfect and harmonically perfect and in resonance with light. And even plants, when plants are played music, that especially classical music, especially Baroque music, there is something that happens to the plants on a molecular level that make them healthier and thrive and grow. So like plants, our bodies, our animalistic temple structure is made of all the elements of the earth. And if plants grow and expand and get healthy with the music that they ingest, we do too. So again, I encourage you to listen to some beautiful, exquisite music this week. Now we're going to move on to the manifestation of sound on the physical plane. Science has discovered that on certain planes, one can clearly see the impression of sound. It is made visible, but in reality, on all objects, the impression of sound falls clearly. Only it is not always visible. It remains for a certain time on any object, and then it disappears. Those who have discovered scientifically the different impressions that are made by sound have found the clear forms of leaves and of flowers and of other things in nature, which is the proof of the belief that the ancient people held, and which is expressed in the Vedanta in the well-known phrase Nada Brahma, meaning sound, the creator. And we read it in the Bible that first was the Word, and the Word was God, and that first was sound, the Word, and then was the light. This only means that the source of creation was sound. In other words, the creative source in its first step towards manifestation was audible, and in its next step it was visible. It also shows that we all see this in objective world. Every form has been constructed by sound. It is the phenomenon of sound. When we go further into this subject, we see that from a mystical point of view, every syllable has a certain effect. As the form of every sound is different, so every syllable has a certain effect, and therefore every sound made or word spoken before an object has charged that object with a certain magnetism. This explains to us the method of the healers, teachers, and mystics who, by the power of sound, charged an object with their healing power. The physical effect of sound has also a great influence upon the human body. The whole mechanism, the muscles, the blood circulation, the nerves are all moved by the power of vibration. As there is a resonance for each and every sound, so the human body is a living resonator for sound. And although by one sound one can produce a resonance in all substances, such as brass and copper, yet there is no greater and more living resonator of sound than the human body. The effect of sound is upon each atom of the body, and for each atom resounds on all glands, on the circulation of the blood, and on the pulsation sound has its effect. In India, there is a feast every year at which the people think of the great heroes of the past and mourn over their life's tragedy. Certain instruments are played, certain drums, sometimes very badly, and sometimes by one who knows better. There are some people who, upon hearing those drums, instantly enter into ecstasy, because the sound of the drum goes directly into their whole system, bringing in to certain pitch where they feel ecstasy. And when they are in ecstasy, they can jump into a fire and come out without being burned. They can cut themselves with a sword, and they are instantly healed. They can eat fire and not be burned by it. One sees it every year at that particular time. They call such condition hal. Hal means condition, which is an appropriate term for it, because on hearing the drum, they think of that condition and they enter into it. In order to go into that trance, one needs not to be very educated or evolved. Sometimes they're just ordinary people, but the sound can have such an effect upon them that they are moved right away into higher ecstasy. Now let's come to the question of music and why music has such a powerful effect on a person. Why a person, by nature, likes music. It is not because he is trained in it or because it is a habit, but because it is the natural effect of sound that it attracts. First, it touches the physical plane. The snake charmers in East have proved many times over that by playing their simple instruments called punji, they can attract the serpents of the vicinity. The sound has this effect upon the physical body of the serpent, and it begins to feel quite different. Through that effect, it is attracted to the sound, even to sacrifice its life, for then it is caught by the snake charmer. For this reason, that the wise considered the science of sound to be the most important science to use in every condition of life, in healing, in teaching, in evolving, in accomplishing all things in life. Music, according to the ancient people, was not a mechanical science or art. Music was the first language. The proof of this can be found even now in the language of the animals and birds, who express their emotions and passions to one another without words, only in sounds. It is the combination of the different sounds of animals and birds that also has an effect upon the numberless multitudes of the lower creation. If music was the first expressive thing in the lower creation, so it was also in the humankind. And since it was the first expression of the emotions and passions of the heart, it is also the last expression of the emotions and passions. For what art cannot express, poetry explains, and what poetry cannot express is expressed by music. To a thinker, therefore, music in all ages will stand on the highest pedestal for the expression of what is deepest in oneself. I'm going to close this episode with a quote from Pythagoras. The highest goal of music is to connect one's soul to their divine nature, not entertainment. If we see that music is truly the path to higher awareness, consciousness, and divine expression, then we as a collective are on our way to the next level of evolution. This concludes our episode of music and its transformational effects on healing, consciousness, and basically evolution. I invite you to check out my offerings. I teach vocal sound healing, so many things, but check out my offerings at Aureliaslight.com. And you can actually receive a free gift of Angels Among Us and join my mailing list, because I give away lots of things and I teach lots of incredible workshops and courses and certifications in sound healing. Also visit my shop, Aureliaslight.com, and check me out on iTunes or Spotify, and I appreciate the love and the support. I wish you so much love and light as we collectively journey on our way.